whoever the suspect is doesn't need to be taking orders from ISIS necessarily. They just need to be affiliated mentally. Their mindset needs to be with ISIS in order for it to be terrorism. Mark, go ahead.
I reject that idea. Just similarly, I reject the idea that a beheading as such means it's terrorism. I mean, that's absurd. People behead for all sorts of reasons, all of them disturbing, all of them disgusting. But the act of beheading per se does not make it terrorism. Now, the question of whether this person had a religious connection to Islam is an interesting one and a necessary one to ask. But again, because someone is Muslim and they commit an act of workplace violence, that doesn't necessarily make them a terrorist.
Exactly, but this isn't workplace violence, for crying out loud. I mean, come on, you've got a situation here where this guy is watching all these videos, Mark. What is the downside to calling this terrorism? What is it, that the FBI and the federal government are going to admit that we've got a problem here? Because
I'll be happy.
In 2014,
I'll be happy to respond to all of your.
The war on terror also includes the internet and the fact that they are recruiting people and asking people to do things.
I hear what you guys are saying.
All right, now let Mark answer.
I just want to be able to make one claim before you guys interrupt me. Okay, so first of all, terrorism is the use of violence to advance a political or ideological agenda. There's no sense here, based on what the law enforcement experts say, that he was attempting to advance an ideological or political or even religious agenda. It sounds to me like a deranged person who was Muslim who killed somebody at work. The reason he engaged in workplace violence, according to him, hold on, Ben. According to him, the reason he engaged in workplace violence had nothing to do with advancing a religious agenda. He called himself He called himself Jakim. He called himself Jakim Yisrael, which is a Hebrew name. He had Jesus Christ tattooed on his chest. This guy has some mental health issues. That's what it's about.
There's no doubt. But anybody out there that's beheading people, including ISIS fighters, they all have mental health problems. They're beheading children, for goodness sake.
Correct.
That's not normal. But it's also in the category of terrorism. And more importantly than that, why is it that I have to beat my head against the wall for you to act as if you don't want this to be what it is? There's no reason to downplay the magnitude of what this is. ISIS says we want lone wolves. ISIS says go out and behead people. This guy is advocating for that in his own words, but you don't want to believe it when he posted on his own page for his legacy on Facebook. And you're like, no, I don't want to accept he's a terrorist.
What about the fact,
Ben,
what about the fact, Allison, that just a couple weeks ago, after the 2 Americans were beheaded, you had Algerian terrorists following suit and kidnapping a French climber, beheading him. Now, they weren't, quote, affiliated with ISIS, but they had seen the videos. They then made a note that they were doing this because they support what ISIS is doing. You've got Australia that had the largest terrorist attempt foiled, a group of loose folks that were affiliated with ISIS
and they called it terrorism.
Not taking direct orders.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's
what
those are terrorist
actions. Those not terrorist attacks? It's ridiculous.
I don't think that you need an email from ISIS for it to be terrorism. I don't think you have to pledge allegiance to ISIS for it to be terrorism.
What do you mean? Posting it to your Facebook page isn't enough?
No, what I'm saying is that it's possible for there to be psychotic copycats. Psychologists and criminologists talk about people who will see a violent act somewhere and they will replicate that behavior, but it doesn't mean that they're doing it for the same political or religious or ideological end. And to be a terrorist, you need one.
Mark, you're obviously overlooking reality, and the reality is you don't want to deal with the fact that there could be people that actually speak for themselves on their own social media pages that claim and advocate for terrorism, support terrorist acts, post videos of beheadings, say America's wicked, wake up Muslims, and for some reason, and I don't know why, it really does make me crazy. I don't know why you won't accept that as terrorism.
I'll tell you why. I mean, Ben, I have an answer for you. Ben, Mel, and Mark, I have an answer because it's not just the 4 of us that are groping for some sort of definition. The FBI has a different definition than the State Department has, than the White House has. We actually, as a country, have not clearly defined what constitutes terrorism, but we will take that up tomorrow night for a different night. Guys, thanks so much for this debate. It's always interesting. Ben, Mel, Mark, I appreciate it.